blessed with a championship prosperity, the likes of which we have never seen, cursed by a past riddled with despair. This is Blursed.
Welcome to episode 2 of Blursed, the Blursening, a podcast created for all the trials and tribulations of Atlanta sports. Today is Wednesday, July 6th. I hope everybody had a fun and safe 4th of July. I know everybody's happy to be back to work in this Atlanta heat. Kize, Blake, you guys melted yet?
I was damn close to melting. And that I'm glad you bring that up because that kind of brings me to what I'm going to be talking about today, because Atlanta United is melting themselves, although theirs may not be heat related. Blake, what about you, bud? What do you got going on?
Oh, we talking about Atlanta United melting on July 5th. Man,
Yeah.
where have our champions gone?
Oh,
Yeah, you know what? I actually had a really tame Independence Day. I stayed inside, stayed cool, enjoyed the air condition. But today I'll be talking about something that's not melting, but actually red hot in a different way, I guess.
Mhm.
Wow, melting is such a great metaphor for good and bad, I guess. Are the Atlanta Hawks and all the spiciness they have done this last week, leading into the draft, and right after the draft, you get the big trades and just a lot of exciting things going on in the NBA and stuff that exciting that the Hawks are doing for the first time in my entire life, probably, when it comes to Hawks being relevant at
yes,
this time
sir.
of the year.
I would
So,
totally agree. Yeah, absolutely.
super excited. Yeah, but what about you, Hayden? What you got going for us?
Yep, so we're going to get into some more Braves talk, obviously. We're going to get into Freddie's drama as that continues, and we're going to talk about Dansby and see what we all think, if he's going to continue to be a Brave past this year. So we're just going to get into it, I suppose. You boys ready?
Yes, sir.
Oh, I'm ready.
All right.
Dan the man?
Old Dan.
I've titled this hot segment Swanson's Swan Song in Atlanta because I like tongue twisters.
Yes, we're big alliteration guys here.
Oh,
Dan
yeah,
the man, does
it.
Atlanta have a plan?
Oh, that's pretty. Is that off the
Wow.
top of my head?
Off the top of my head. Just
He's nearly a professional, folks.
Yes, he's getting there.
It's all about spinning.
So we're going to lead off with the never-ending story that is Freddie Freeman, the Dodgers, and the Braves. And now his agent is very much involved. We touched on it a little bit last week. Freddie fired his agent, Casey Close. But right after the episode dropped, new information came out, and it's just continued on and on and on.
Mm-hmm.
So Doug Gottlieb, who I'm not too familiar with, he tweeted on the 29th of June, Casey Close never told Freddie Freeman about the Braves' final offer. That is why Freeman fired him. He found out in Atlanta this weekend. It isn't that rare to have happen in the MLB, but it happened. Close knew Freddie would have taken the Atlanta deal. So there's a lot to unpack there, and that's just high drama. Aaron, don't you know a little bit more about Gottlieb, about his background?
Yeah, see, so all I used to I remember Gottlieb just from him being a radio show, dude being on ESPN. I think he's now on CBS or something like that. But the main thing I remember from Gottlieb, I don't know if you guys remember this, but just a few years ago, he tried to, I believe it was Oklahoma State. I think that's where he went to school.
Yes, Oklahoma State.
Yeah, Oklahoma State was looking for a new head basketball coach. I mean, we're talking about a premier program in the Big 12. And Gottlieb, thought he should have gotten it. And I just remember when that happened, I was just completely blown away. I was like, what does this dude think what right he has going straight from being just some CBS personality to coaching at Oklahoma State basketball?
Well, he's a Fox. He's actually a Fox.
Oh, is it Fox? Okay, yeah.
But it seems like a lot of other people have that perspective on him as well and don't treat him as a reliable source at all.
Sorry, not trying to interrupt, but
ahead.
Just looking at the tweet, reading it over again, when it came out, this was hot news for sure. But the last part gets you kind of in the feels. Close knew Freddie wouldn't have taken the Atlanta deal, but that kind of, I don't know, crosses the line of if there's truth there, why would Close not want Freddie to take that deal? Because it was for less money. Is that why? I don't know. That just seems like that's a big allegation. That last part.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, all agents, their number one job is to do whatever their client wants, get them the most money, which is
Sure.
probably part of what Freddie wanted, and to be where he wanted. Anyways, in response, Freddie offered no comment, and Casey Close and his agency, Excel Agency, went on the full defensive on Twitter. They had former and current clients come to his defense. Derek Jeter, they had him put out a statement as well. So that's just like how seriously they were taking it. They threatened Gottlieb with legal action. I doubt anything comes of that. They're
Right.
they're trying to stunt and scare a little bit. They have to.
You
do
have
this.
to. You
You
have
got
to.
to.
Yeah.
I mean,
Because here's the thing:
it's
if
their entire business.
right,
Yeah.
if it comes out that you actually don't have your athlete's best interest in mind when you're signing these deals, but actually you're looking for, say, in this case, Casey Close's wallet, then there's a problem there. There's a big problem if the agent's chasing their own money and not the wants of the athlete.
Exactly. And so they released a statement, obviously, the next day, and it was very weird. I'll just read a single sentence from it that I've highlighted. Since March, the Braves have fostered a narrative about the negotiations, which stated plainly is false.
Yeah.
So instead of going after Gottlieb, they went directly after the Braves and the entire organization,
Right.
which is super weird. All of this is extremely strange. You typically don't have like a poor relationship with a specific agent at a specific agency, but that's kind of where we are now. There's bad blood. There's no way around it.
Yeah, clearly. I think that's very apparent.
The hard part about this, and the thing that makes you feel like there might be more truth behind this, is the fact that they are going for the Braves and not just Gottlieb. Because if there was nothing more to this, if there's no more of the story here, then why call it the whole Braves organization? And is
Right.
it because the Braves, honestly, they're not going out and saying it's anyone's fault.
No.
Not that I know of. They
That's
haven't
what I
accused
was-
anyone.
Yeah, that's what I was confused about. Is like, what exactly? When I read that, I was like, wait, what exactly have they done? I thought, Doug Gottlieb, as far as I know, does not work for the Braves. So I was confused about that myself.
I guess their accusation would be that like the Braves fed Freddie a false narrative about a final contract offer that hadn't been communicated. But I mean, the thing is, nobody's ever going to know except for. I mean, I guess Freddie doesn't even really know. So it's just going to be AA and it's going to be Casey Close, and no one's ever really going to know what happened. Where I land on it is Freddie is the most unbiased party in this whole situation because it directly affects his life. And he's going to make the best decision for him. And he made a decision based on all the information that he had in front of him from the Braves, from his agency, and he fired his agent.
Yeah.
Which I think that tells me everything that I need to know about the situation. What do you guys
Absolutely.
think?
It's the most telling aspect of this that he fired his agent. And whether it's because his agent did what Gottlieb said or not, his agent obviously mishandled something here. And it's, I don't know. And it makes it even harder and it pains me even more as a Braves fan, as a fan of Freddie, to see him not only have to go through, I don't know, like leaving Atlanta, but then all of this hasn't stopped. Yeah. Like this has been going on now. How far into the season are we? We're halfway point. Yeah. And it's still going.
Especially, he's had such a quiet career as far as like
no drama at all.
No, not at all.
Zero.
So
yeah, no, and I think it just speaks to even more why they had to come out so strong in opposition here, because I think exactly what you just said is that most people I think are also going to conclude that Freddie is the one that's going to be the most unbiased here, and he fired his agent, which in and of itself is an indictment of them. So, yeah, I mean.
But at the end of the day, I do think there's more to the story here. I mean, Freddie and AA, I still don't know if they're on talking terms or not. Like, I know that ended in a weird way, maybe bad blood there. And whether it has to do with Freddie's agent and now Freddie find out after the fact, I don't know. Maybe we find out 10 years from now, like after Freddie retires and Freddie tells all, like who knows what's going to happen, but it won't be anytime soon.
Freddie's autobiography just got way more interesting after this past
that
offseason.
It did.
So I'll transition here, and the reason we're bringing this up, it is hot news, but we're tying this back into Dansby, and if this might be Dansby's last year. and he is represented, like we said last week, by the same agency. I'm not entirely sure. It's hard to find information of if it's actually by Casey Close himself, but it may be. He stated right after Freddie fired his agent that he was going to remain with the agency. I don't know that he's made comment after that. I think we said last week he's definitely been in communication with Freddie. He's got to know what's happening, like on that end, right?
For sure. And I think it's different too. I mean, we all know this is different with Freddie and his Dansby. Maybe not every Atlanta fan might agree with us here, but at least from my perspective, Freddie coming back to the bargaining table this last year, we all thought until it didn't happen that Freddie's coming back. But with Dansby, I know there's this big enclave of the fan base that never wants to let him go. But I know there's also a big group of the fan base that's been this last couple of years saying, is he really the guy we want to keep here? And so him leaving might not be as a shocker or even as big, like a bigger surprise to a lot of us.
I'm glad you bring that up, Blake, because I feel like you said, even up until like maybe the few days before it happened, I thought Freddie was staying. This feels like the exact opposite. It feels like the further we go, the further away from the Braves he's getting.
For sure.
Yeah. So
I guess the big question is, does this information with Casey Close and Freddie, does that help or hurt the Braves' chances of holding on to their shortstop? You know, the agent needs to act in good faith, but that might not necessarily be the case with Excel Agency and the Braves now.
I'll be honest. I don't even know if it's going to matter with Dansby. I just think that because of Dansby, such a career year he's having this year, and I know you're going to get into these numbers in just a little bit, I think we're just not going to be close. I'd be so surprised if we went out and offered him even $25 million a year. And I think he might bring more than that, honestly, at the open market. I know a lot of people in baseball, especially these big spending teams, have short-term memory when it comes to these things. So they might give him, I don't know, the whole castle.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I think it's the exact same thing there. Also, I think the Braves have a history. We might have touched on this last week, but do the Braves not have a history of letting shortstops go? I mean, specifically, just people that come to mind would just be like Andrelton Simmons. Way back when, I feel like they let him. And now, granted, that ended up not being the exact same scenario because I don't think he ever reached a level that Dansby's at. But they certainly let him go at the prime of his career, and that one paid off.
For sure. It was at the prime of his career. It was actually when he was starting to look like he might be a decent hitter, kind of like Dansby.
Yeah.
Like, I know their peaks are much different, and I would say they're very comparable in the field. Who is that other shortstop we had? I can't remember. It was young before Simmons.
That is a great question. I can't remember. Hayden, do you remember?
My brain automatically goes to Rafael Furcal because he was like,
my
favorite. Who, you know, he also ended up leaving and playing for the Dodgers, ironically.
Yes.
So yeah, I'm not 100% sure.
I'll figure it out.
All right. Well, anyway, while Blake's looking that up, we're going to talk about Dansby's ridiculous output this year. And you know, over his career, he's been extremely streaky, up and down player. His entire tenure.
Yunel Escobar.
Ooh, yep. That's right.
Yes, I feel like he was kind of the same way, and we let him go too.
Yep. Yeah, that's a good point. Anyways, Dansby coming up with big time hits and big moments has kind of been his forte. He's been a clutch player, even with his streakiness, and he's coming up extremely clutch this season for himself and getting a huge payday. Just off the top of the head here, 2022, he was projected for about 2 WAR, wins above replacement.
Yeah.
He is at 4.
Oh,
he has doubled his season WAR projection in half the season.
Do you know?
Crazy.
Do you know what his highest WAR he's ever had in a season is?
Previous was last year, 3.4 WAR. He's already over that. So WAR goes both ways. So like if he does awful, it'll sink.
Right.
But I don't think that's likely at this point. I think we're just seeing a different guy. And then like in comparison to the rest of the shortstops around the league, he leads shortstops in WAR and on base plus slugging percentage, which is kind of like the go-to stat to look at these days because it shows how well he's reaching base, how well he's seeing the ball, and that he can hit for average and power. He's third in home runs among shortstops, third in RBIs.
That's crazy.
Second in runs scored, fourth in stolen bases.
Wow.
That was the biggest surprise to me of all of these was the stolen bases number. I actually cannot believe he has. Was he at 12 on the year? I think.
Let's see. He is at 12 stolen bases.
Wow.
And, he's been caught 3 times, so relatively good percentage of success. I mean, it's kind of just off the rails what he's doing out there. And I'll say this to toot my own horn. He's doing all this while playing the hardest position on the field, in my opinion, as a former high school shortstop.
Yes, we got an expert on it.
Hey,
not to brag.
Hey, you're also a intramural softball champion too. So let's not.
Yeah. You can't forget about that, folks.
Well, you know what they always say? They call shortstop the center of baseball. You know what I mean? As far as the most difficult positions to play. Yes, certainly.
But it's just a little bit about like his numbers this year. Do you think some of what I'm trying to say, some of the quality in his numbers are actually a lot to do with the people he has around him in the lineup? Like you have to. I'd argue this is probably the most solid lineup from 1 to 9 in the history of the Braves.
It's a contributing factor, but he could just as easily be at the bottom of the lineup if he wasn't
for sure.
And that's where he was at the beginning of the year, and he's just so hot that I think it could put him anywhere right now. It seems like there's just been a flip that's switched. That even those valleys of his lows, where he used to be like a 1 for 50. Now it's like, okay, he's 1 for 15 with a home run. And then he turns it back on and he's just back and leading the team.
When Freddie was up to play and he'd be like, oh, Freddie's been 1-8 in his last, or 1-9 in his last 10 at bats. And we'd all be like, oh, he's due for a hit. Like, I feel like that's becoming Dansby now. Like, oh, well, Dansby's due for a hit when he's going on one of those runs.
100%. And then a few defensive stats. He has the second highest fielding percentage in all of baseball at shortstop. And then the advanced metrics that looks at how good a range he has based off his starting position as the ball is hit, outs above average, and defensive runs saved, place him as the 6th best shortstop defender in the league. Which, I mean, everything's just pointing to him reaching his potential that you really hope you get out of a number 1 overall draft pick.
Right.
Getting the 5 tools of baseball, which is hitting for power, running, fielding, and throwing. And he's just doing all of it. It's incredible.
It is incredible. And I feel like what's weird to me is looking at these shortstops numbers. I know you, the audience, cannot see these numbers in front of you, but just to give you a heads up, for stolen bases, number 1 for shortstops 19, number 2 is 16, and number 3 is 12. And below that, you get down to 9. And below 9, the next one's 4. Like, there's not much speed on the base pads coming from this position, really.
Carlos Correa hasn't stolen a single base all year. And, I mean, he's one of the best ones out there.
Yeah, incredible. Yeah.
The sport's changed a lot, so you don't necessarily see that many steals, but you start having guys like Acuna that's starting to swing back the other direction. He can just do it all. And, Dansby's right there with him.
For sure.
Stealing bases as well and playing great defense and hitting. So it's just fun to watch, and we're lucky to be able to see all that happen this year. And so really all this is to say he's playing at an MVP pace.
Crazy to say it, but it's
I'll
true.
Elaborate on that. Do you guys know the last shortstop to win MVP?
Only because you told me.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. Hey, if it wasn't sitting here in front of me, I would have no clue.
I had a feeling I knew who it was, but I did look it up to make sure. It was Jimmy Rollins for the Phillies back in 2007.
Yes.
And looking back at his year, I mean, he had a great year. Let's see, he stole a ton of base. He had 41 stolen bases. He hit 30 home runs, 139 runs scored, 94 RBIs.
He also hit for average that year too, which he never, I feel like he was always around like a 250, 270 kind of hitter.
Yep.
Yeah. What was he? Almost batted 300 that year. Yeah.
I mean, 296.
296, and he ended up with a 6.5 WAR. So WAR is super important these days as far as awards go. It just kind of shows, it's one number that shows a lot of value to all these people that are voting on stuff like the awards at the end of the year.
And for anyone who doesn't know what WAR means, is I think it's win above replacement. And I know a lot of old heads have a problem with that stat. They go, well, who are you replacing? Who's this arbitrary replacement? And I think it's the average. I think average every player together and is based on the average player. And so if you're this much better than the average player, it goes up. Or if you're this much worse than the average player. But I always thought that was funny. Like, well, who are we replacing him with?
And if we're wrong about that, then sorry, and we're going to hear about it from one of our buddies, Gray.
It's okay. Yeah, shout out,
Gray. Shout out to G Daddy. We'll have you on the show eventually.
Yes, our advanced analytics
if we
correspondent.
Start spewing off wrong things about statistics.
Yes. If we're messing up more, we have a lot of problems, or we're going to need some help.
Yes,
fair enough. All right, so Jimmy Rollins in the first half, 88 games, he had 22 doubles, 10 triples, which is pretty impressive, 16 home runs, 53 RBIs, batting .286, 15 stolen bases. Dansby in 81 games in the first half this year, 93 hits, 18 doubles, 14 home runs, 52 runs scored, 49 RBIs, 12 stolen bases, and he's hitting 304. And that's like incredibly close. Like he is on an MVP pace, like literally handed down to him from Jimmy Rollins.
Real quick, I don't like complimenting Jimmy Rollins because I don't like complimenting Phillies players, especially they went on to win the World Series that year. Him, Ryan Howard, and Chase Utley had a lot to do with it. And I think Cole Hamels was pitching for them too. Like I'll be honest, I liked a lot of the players on that team. But let me just talk about Jimmy Rollins' numbers real quick. I know this is about Dansby, but he had 30 home runs that year. That guy was 5'7", 175. This guy was
crazy.
Like he always, I felt like, was known for like just a blue pit here, blue pit there, but he hit for power that year. And you're seeing the same from Dansby this year. I mean, Dansby's a bigger guy, 6'1", 190. But it also shows you how the sport's changed. It's just
yeah, we don't know what's going on with that baseball anymore either. MLB bought the producers. Is it Spalding maybe? Or is it Rollins? One of the two. So don't.
I think it's Rollins.
I did not know that, actually.
I think it's Rollins.
Yeah, so that's how they're able to manipulate the baseballs and change it around now. But we'll have to get into that another time. Okay, so with all that information and the fact that Dansby is on an MVP pace, he's hitting the open market this offseason. There's no way we're going to get him to a contract now before the season ends.
Right.
There's no reason for him to. His current contract is $10 million this season after he won arbitration hearing. His market value based on Sports Track is 6 years, $132 million, which will put him at $22 million per year. So we'll be paying him double at the very least next year if we do get him to come back.
That doesn't seem bad though.
It seems low, so maybe it hasn't been adjusted yet for what he's doing.
Right.
A couple of the players that signed last year, Marcus Semien, he had a 7-year, $175 million deal. Trevor Story, 6 for $140. Javi Baez, 6 for $140. And then let's see, Corey Seager, he got a 10-year, $325 million deal. So that's what we're looking at, folks. Like it's steep. It's gonna be costly.
Is.
So I mean, looking at all that, he's gonna get a massive contract between 20 to 30 million per year. The question is, should that be us? Is he going to continue producing at this level? Maybe not this level. You can't expect that every year, but like at something comparable to where he would continue being a leader on a team. Because if you get into a situation where you pay a player that's not producing at their contract level when it's that large of a contract, that's when you start getting into some big problems as an organization.
I'll be honest, it scares me. Like I looked at Trey Turner. So Trey Turner signed a 1-year, $21 million contract with the Dodgers this year. The reason I'm looking at Trey Turner is because if we're not signing him, I feel like we're going to be fighting the Dodgers again this offseason for Dansby. And like the numbers we're looking at here and looking at Dansby's career averages, not this year, because this year is incredible. And I would love for him to stay on this his entire career. But if you look back at the last couple of years, he typically around a 2.5, 4 kind of every year. So, I mean, you'd probably say at the end of this year, that's like half of what he's doing this year. And would I be comfortable giving him $22 million for 6 years? I don't think so.
Right.
Would I be okay with giving him like a 1-year, $25 million? I would do that. Would Dansby want to do that? Probably not. But like, because someone else is going to offer him a lot more.
Right.
So no, I don't. To answer your question, I wouldn't feel comfortable giving him at least the 6-year, the market value 6-year, $22 million a year for $132 million. I just wouldn't.
Yeah, And so just a couple. So if we go that route, here's a few options of what we're looking at. Other free agents that are hitting the market. Trey Turner, like you said, he's probably going to end up being about the same price as Dansby. They're all about the same age. Xander Bogaerts, he's a stud shortstop for the Red Sox. He has a player option, and around the league, it's pretty obvious. Everybody knows he's going to opt out. And then Carlos Correa, he has an opt out as well. But I think he just stays with the Twins for another year. But those are all the players of his caliber right now.
Right.
I don't know. If you want another player of his caliber, you're going to pay the same amount.
Yeah. So really what they've got to figure out, what Double A's got to figure out is, do you want to try to lock up Dansby, or do you want to, like you said, pay someone the same amount and roll the dice on whether Dansby regresses back to his mean, or if he keeps going and we kind of miss out?
I think there's a lot at play too this coming off season. I think with Ian Anderson struggles right now, you have Charlie Morton's going to probably retire after this year. Maybe not, but looking likely. We don't know. I mean, I just think with having some pitching holes too, that the Braves might be looking to spend a little bit more money on that front than we would maybe a shortstop, especially when someone like Arcia could move to that position. And you might have stuff in the pipeline.
Exactly. So a few internal options that we'd be looking at. Potential stopgap would be Arcia. He's been playing a lot of second base lately in Ozzy's absence. He signed through the end of 2023. He's making $1.5 million per year. So if you want to save a little bit of money, if we need to, lock Acuna into his long-term deal,
right,
pay him $30 million a year to keep him happy, then that's some savings right there from $30 million a year. Our AAA shortstop right now is Braden Shoemake. He was a first-round pick in 2019. He's almost 25 years old, which is getting up there for the minor leagues.
I'll be honest, that is also one of the more unique names I've ever heard in my life.
Shoemake. And that's Shew for those who don't know.
Yeah, weird.
I mean, he has a career as a cobbler after this for sure.
Oh, absolutely.
If he doesn't make it, he'll be fine.
What if it's pronounced Shamak?
I love a good cobbler.
It is Shoemake.
Oh, it actually is just Shoemake.
Nice. I won't get into making fun of last names. So he's getting a little bit older for a prospect, but the one that's really hot right now is Vaughn Grissom, and you keep seeing news come out about him and what he's doing in high A. He's only 21 years old. I think we drafted him like the 11th round a couple years ago, so not necessarily somebody that you look to like break out, but he is, and he's crushing it. You probably heard about him recently because he hit 2 grand slams in a game. He almost hit for a cycle, I think, this weekend.
Wow.
I think he would have had a chance, but he got pulled in the 6th inning because they were just winning by a lot. So I think one thing to look out for him with is if Alex Anthopoulos wants to pull him up to Double-A sooner rather than later this season to see what he can do against a higher class of pitching. And if he can do something similar to what Michael Harris did, then the equation is different than if we don't have any internal options.
Right.
And that's the interesting part about baseball is the fact you have all these feeder teams below you. So the general manager's job, especially the good ones like AA, shows you that if you're really honed into all facets of your farm, you'll know. Because, with Michael Harris, he promoted him past AAA this year, straight to the bigs because he saw something and he knew the team needed a spark. He's that in tune with the whole roster and his what I'm trying to say, his prospects below. So it's exciting. I trust AA.
Yep. I mean, he's done nothing to betray our trust for sure. He seems to he just pulls all the right levers and everything just lines up with him. So we just got to keep trusting our boy. But I know what Blake's thought is here. Bleezy.
Yes.
Oh, I go by Blake or Bleezy.
Blursed Bleezy.
Blake doesn't think that Dansby will be our shortstop next year.
No.
Kize, what do you think?
I honestly don't either. But I will say that because of kind of what I had touched on earlier, as far as this feeling like the opposite of the way the Freddie thing went down, in that, I thought Freddie was staying the whole time, ended up not. Maybe something cosmic about that. We'll just have it to where this plays out the opposite way as well, in that it seems like he's leaving, and then all of a sudden, Double-A, boom, locks him up. So yeah. I would be perfectly fine with that happening, obviously, as long as he keeps this up. But do I think it's going to happen? Not necessarily. No, I don't.
All right. Well, I guess with the
Before we go on, what do you
yeah.
want to happen, Hayden? The audience wants to know. We want to know, not what you think will happen.
The
What would
people are
you like?
asking.
The, I hear
Well,
it right
shit.
now. What was that?
So here's the thing. I have shit talked Dansby his entire career.
Yes.
You
And
have.
he has just completely shut me up this year. And he's made me a believer. Honestly, what you're seeing from him, being able to consistently hit the ball the other way, being top tier at shortstop, it's hard to find. And you can see that by the open market and how well they get paid.
Yeah.
I think what's going to happen is that he's going to take the Freddie Freeman situation, see it for what it was, and I think he is going to be involved in those negotiations in a way that Freddie was not. He's an Atlanta native. I don't know if before the season AA planned on him sticking around long term, but I think Dansby will be in Atlanta next year and probably get a 6-year deal. It may end up being one of the more expensive in Braves history, but I think that was kind of like a tale of warning for him of this is what can happen.
Right.
Wow.
So we will see, and
It's a long season.
Best.
It's a long season. Who knows how it'll end? I really hope he continues this hot streak and takes us all the way to back-to-back World Series. I think if you win back-to-back World Series and he wins the MVP, you almost got to bring him back, especially after Freddie leaving, like you're saying.
True.
Yeah, you can't let two guys walk in a row like that.
Yeah, you can't.
So hopefully we get back next year to a united front with the Atlanta Braves. But speaking of Atlanta,
I love that. Good segue there.
Guys,
Hayden.
what do you have for us?
Well, unfortunately, I don't have a ton of great news. We talked about it in the little opening about them melting. And the sad part is, while we were melting down here in the heat of Atlanta, they found themselves up in Toronto and New York the past week. And man, they still found a way to melt. Completely unsuccessful road trip. We talked about the Toronto game last week. We don't have to go back over that. We're going to touch on the 2 games in New York that we played. Then we're going to go into the defensive woes because that's why these poor results are happening. And then we're going to kind of talk about, is the season lost? And I'd like y'all's take on that as well, as far as where we're at, where we're going to go. To start, we'll do a quick little recap. Like I said, we spent the weekend or the past weekend in New York. Thursday, we played the number 1 team in the league, New York Red Bull. It was about as frustrating of a game as you are going to have in any sport. And I feel like I find myself saying that time and time again with this team. We played very well for 80 minutes. We set up defensively. We let them press onto us and then counterattacked off of that. We looked great. We looked the better team. And then we subbed Joseph on and scored a goal in the 75th minute to go up 1-0. Prototypical of Atlanta. In the 80th minute, our young fella, Caleb Wiley, gives up a penalty to New York, and they obviously tied up 1-1. And then at the end of the game in the 89th minute, Alan Franco plays one of the worst balls I've ever seen in my life to Alex DeJohn that gets immediately stolen, and they go the other way to take the 2-1 victory. So we go just, what were you going to say, Blake?
I was just saying one, like a real heartbreaker. And it's kind of reminiscent of, was it Nashville earlier this year that we tied it in like the very end of the game and kind of took away their win? Or
yes.
Yes. And so like,
it
kind of reminiscent of that, kind of some payback, even though this is a loss, so we don't get any points.
Right.
But something that's just frustrating too, for me, is just New York Red Bulls. They've been consistent in MLS their entire career. Like they've had a champion. Have they had a champion team? I'm pretty sure they have.
Yes, they've won. Yeah. They've won championship.
And not only, and they've stayed they're always do a great job of refreshing themselves. And I feel like they've done a good job of putting themselves at the top, and something that Atlanta United looks up to and wants to be. And we want to be the new Red Bull.
Yeah, going forward. Yes. And they've also had great coaching success. Their last coach when they last won MLS Cup was Jesse Marsh. And Jesse Marsh went on to go coach in the Bundesliga, and now he's Leeds United manager in the Premier League. So he's making waves for Americans in Europe, just from a coaching standpoint, which is great. I will say one bright spot in New York was that the 75th minute Joseph Martinez goal was the first goal we've ever scored in that stadium in our team's existence. Should have been the winner, but wasn't. Still cool, though. So we'll just swiftly go across town to the NYCFC match that just happened on Sunday. We had very little rest going into that game. This one was quite the opposite tale in that we played pretty poorly in the first 20 minutes. We tried to climb back into the game, but then in the 37th minute, the league's leading scorer, Tati Castellanos, he banged one in again on the near post. So sadly, a little recurring theme for Rocco Rios Novo. We don't like to see it. But then in the second half, Atlanta equalized on one of the prettier goals you'll ever see in your life, from the new signing Thiago Almada to the old boy Joseph Martinez in the 56th minute. But then literally a microcosm of our entire season happened 1 minute and 33 seconds later. I shit you not, 1 minute and 33 seconds later, New York came back and scored to go back up 2-1. It wasn't all lost, though. We sub on Dom Dwyer in the 84th minute, and he scores to equalize 2-2. So we actually salvage a point against the fourth-ranked team in the league. But, man, bad road trip altogether. 1 point in 3 matches is not what you want.
Isn't it weird, too? We're rooting for Dom Dwyer as a
yes, the villain. Our villain for so long.
He's been so good for us this year. He really has.
He's been great. I think he scored 3 or 4 goals, one of which was a bicycle kick.
Yeah, him crazy. And then Wiley, the one who made the mistake in the first New York game, have actually been both very impressive this year, I thought.
They absolutely both have. All right, so enough of the recap there. We're going to go straight into what I think is causing these woes, and that's our defensive back line. Blake, you and I touched on it a little bit last week. But it's been injuries like we talked about, but sure. I think within that though, the injuries have occurred some time ago now. This back line has been a back line that's been together for a little bit. And we also still have Alan Franco, who was supposed to be and has been in times one of our best defenders, if not our best, outside of Miles.
And the frustrating part, like you're saying, is you would think something that we talked about is cohesivity, having this back line to keep playing with so they get better, but they keep falling for the same problems. Like you said, we score a goal and then we give up a goal right away.
Yep.
Or we cause a penalty, which I know that's a different kind of free kick. It's different than the corner. At least that's kind of gone off the page a little bit. We're not letting people score off corners.
Not as much.
But man, it's the free kicks that we're allowing on stupid mistakes. And it's I don't know what it is. After a goal, us just losing our mind.
Sorry about that. It's a strange letdown.
You got excited there, Kize. I get you.
I got a little excited. That was me. But yeah, so stats wise, I looked at a couple things. Did a deep dive in some advanced analytics. Again, shout out G Daddy. And there's a few telling things that illustrate reasons why the back line does so poorly from time to time. And the first one I looked at was pressures in the attacking third. So for those of you that don't know, it's kind of self-explanatory there, but that's the number of times that applying the pressure to the opposing player who is receiving, carrying, or releasing the ball while in the attacking third of the field. And folks, we are 22nd in MLS in pressures in the attacking third. So many times this season, we've given players too much space with the ball. And when you do that in that area of the pitch, that's just going to immediately lead to chances that will lead to goals. One other stat was we're 20th in the league in successful pressures. So that is the number of times the squad gained possession within 5 seconds of applying pressure. So
you're telling me is we're worried to pressure. And
exactly.
Then, and in our worry, we're doing a bad job pressuring.
Right. You're exactly right. Yes, because pressuring the ball is one thing, but you have to do it right if you're going to do it, because if you don't, you find yourself out of position oftentimes that, again, is going to lead to someone pouncing on it. So not only are we bad about the amount of times we pressure the ball, but when we do it, we're not good at it. So, like we said, I hate to bring up injuries one more time, but they do need to be talked about.
Something else I think needs to be talked about is like you brought this up last week when you talked about Darlin Magby as like not only was he a stopper for us in the center defensive mid, but he's kind of like I want to try to say like a linebacker out there, kind of spouting some directions, giving people clarity, and being that, or maybe that safety who always cleaned up a lot of messes. It seemed
exactly. Yes.
And we don't seem to have that anymore, and a lot is relying on the back four.
Yep, that's a great point. I'm glad you bring that up because we're missing that presence. But the one presence that's there, a guy that we signed as a designated player, Alan Franco. he has remained there. And at times you'll see, I find myself watching Atlanta United matches and seeing Alan Franco, seeing him make just one of the better defensive plays that you'll ever see, world class. And then 3 or 4 seconds later, just a complete mental gaffe comes out of him. So I don't really know what to make of that. Basically, knowing that 3 starters, though, on the back line are out for the foreseeable future, we find ourselves asking, how does this get better? Because we're not going to improve our position on the table unless it does.
I have a strategic question for you.
Yes.
So I watched a little bit of the game because the Braves were getting blown out earlier this week, and so I watched a little United. You said it was strategic to let New York pressure, to be close to the goalkeeper and the back line.
Yep.
That way to open different players up downfield.
Yeah, like a counterattack. Yep.
If our back line is our weakest link on our team, do you want to let them get that much pressure? Like, without playing other players back?
Right. So obviously, conventionally, you would say no. But when you do a strategy like parking the bus, I thought it was a very ballsy move by Gonzalo Pineda. When you do that, it's not just your back line that you're relying on at that point. You're relying on your wingers and you're relying on all your midfielders.
Okay. Almost everyone but your striker.
To be the first line of defense. They did a very good job. And I'm not saying the back line was poor in the first half and most of the second half of the Red Bull game. They also did well. I thought George Campbell had a pretty good game. Alan Franco did well. But go ahead.
No, I was going to say, and maybe some of what you're seeing is, and why Pineda chose to park the bus there, is maybe he doesn't fully trust the back line together.
I think that.
No, continue. Yeah, sorry.
No, I was just saying, I think you're exactly right in that that probably was a bit of him saying, like, okay, we're going up against the best team in the league. We need our best chance at their house is to park the bus, live on the counterattack. And he also didn't start Joseph. I thought that was a great call. It gave him some much needed rest, but it also gave us a huge punch.
When we subbed him in.
Yeah, exactly. And it could not have paid off better. We scored our first goal ever there. But then the mental lapse happened collectively because they immediately opened the game back up, and 2 crucial mistakes. If those things don't happen, we're talking about a 1-0 victory, our first ever win in that stadium. But instead, it went the other way, and it's a disappointing result. And I think that I'm not trying to blame it all on Alan Franco, but what I need him to do as the lone remaining starter is provide more leadership to people like Aiden McFadden, and Caleb Wiley, both teenagers who now find themselves thrust into starting for an MLS club, which is not easy. All right, that's not, as a teenager, not an easy thing to do. But I'm also looking forward to the incoming loan signing. I believe he'll be here in 2 days. Juan Parada, who we got from Tigres. He's definitely going to add a similar presence of Franco's, and hopefully we can get a little more stability there.
And then your hope is that every week when we're sitting down here recording our podcast for all our wonderful listeners, that we're not here saying, and we had another awful weekend from Atlanta United, like a disappointing weekend.
Saying that. Yeah, exactly. So real quick, before I throw it over to you, Blake, let me just wrap it up. Yeah, we got to think in 11th place here. Is the season a lost cause? I don't think so. Because while we're in 11th, the East is extremely tight. We're only 5 points off of 7th place, which is the last playoff spot. And with as talented, we're literally the most expensive team in MLS history. We have the talent to score goals. We have the talent to stop goals from being scored. And so all we got to do is get in the big dance. And if we do, then all bets are off. I think we can win MLS Cup, but that's what they need to focus on right now.
When you said how expensive we were, Hayden made a face there. His eyes lit up like, ooh, not a good look. No. But I will say there are a lot of injured players on that list that we spent a lot of money on that aren't out on the field playing right now.
Yes.
But to that point, I'll say, what if we get to the end of this year and we don't make the playoffs? I still think, and I think you feel the same way here, we bring Pineda back for next year because injuries really have made it where it's really hard to tell whether it's him, whether it's the lack of consistency in our players right now because of injuries, or what is, you know what I mean? What is the problem?
The thing that is, though, I don't know. I think he may be a victim of his own success in that he came in last year halfway through the season, fixed a broken team, brought us all the way up to from 12th when he took over the team to 5th, and one game away or one spot away from a home game in the playoffs. And we only lose to the eventual champions NYCFC. And then coming out this year, if we were to not make the playoffs after what he was able to do in such a short span of time last year, I don't know, man. I'm not sure if they would keep him.
Playoffs. We're talking playoffs.
We're talking about playoffs. But yeah.
No, I mean, I don't know. I guess time will tell. And I think as weeks go on, we'll see if we make that run for the cup.
Yes.
But yeah, I don't know. I do love how they put the hot seat on the managers of Atlanta United because they do demand success.
They do. Well,
it's something I wish more Atlanta sports would. And speaking of Atlanta sports that do demand success.
Yes. Let's talk about a team that's got a little more excitement in a good way around them.
Yeah. So the Atlanta Hawks, man. I don't know how Shaq does that, but a couple of things we're going to talk about here today. We're going to touch on NBA free agency. We're going to look around at the trades that have been happening before and after free agency has started. And then we're going to go and look at the new Hawks compared to last year's Hawks. We're going to talk about the good, the bad, the ugly, and whether we're better or worse. And then what's going on with KD? I don't know. We may get there. We may not. So to start off, we're going to look at our free agency. I have a little free agency tracker, guys, that I put on here if you want to click on the notes. For all of our listeners, this I just made a little spreadsheet because I do love spreadsheets. And in here, I went around the.
You do love spreading those sheets, Blake. We know.
I do love spreading sheets. Yes. Specifically spreading and sheets separately. Right. All right. So to start off, we have our free agency signing so far. A couple of the highlights. We see Bradley Beal signs the largest contract in NBA history. Mm-hmm. This is 5 years, $251 million. So that's $50 million a year. It's just crazy money we're talking about here in the NBA.
Yes.
Zach LaVine, he's a little younger here, so he wasn't. The way this works is it's based on years in the league, whether you're playing for the same team. There's a lot of things that go into it. If you've made the All-Star team, if you made or maybe not All-Star team, I think it's just NBA All Team.
Yeah,
so
All NBA team,
right?
Yeah.
Which dictates some money here. Zach LaVine signed a 5-year, $215 million. That gets him a whopping $43 million a year. Below that, Jalen Brunson signs with Dallas, which shocker news comes out today that New York Knicks are going to be looked into for tampering, getting Jalen Brunson. He literally signed this. He literally signed the contract right when the time opened up for him to sign. And the news reports came out that he didn't even meet with Dallas, which this is two big things as a Hawk fan. We like to keep Dallas in the consideration because of Luka Doncic.
Sadly.
How can they not retain their best secondary player besides Luka? Like,
I'll tell you how. You could say New York nicked him.
They nicked him. But here's the worst part.
Goodness.
Reports came out that Dallas actually offered more money than the Knickerbockers. So the ones that nicked him actually literally nicked him. They fleeced him. They stole him from him. And some people are saying tampering. I think Jalen Brunson's dad actually coaches in New York or something like that.
Really?
Like he's associated with the New York Knicks.
Okay,
So there's
in that franchise.
There's a family bond that brings him there. Exactly. Anthony Simons got his big payday when what's his name? Damian Lillard went down through injury. He came out, balled out. He got a 4-year, $104 million, $26 million a year. That's more than John Collins, by the way.
Yeah.
Really, really cool. Probably deserving. I mean, it's a wings league. So, I mean, he plays the guard position and he's good at putting up points. A lot of people's favorites, Dort re-signed with OKC with a nice big contract. Dort. Yeah, the old Dort. A lot of people wanted him when they denied his option. Everyone's like, what's going on? But then they gave him more money.
Yeah.
The Knicks re-signed their big boy Mitchell Robinson to a nice $15 million a year. I feel like that's a pretty good contract. Portis returns. The stare down returns back to Milwaukee on a good deal. PJ Tucker, this was a really weird part. So Harden denied his player option, which was a $50-something million option he could have signed with 76ers. He denied it to sign for a lower amount of money. So that way they could bring in PJ Tucker, which I get. PJ Tucker is someone I wanted on the Hawks. He's a gritty power forward. He brings leadership. He brings discipline. And he brings like the don't mess with me to the other teams. Like, don't mess with our players because I'm going to mug you.
He's an enforcer.
Exactly. Yeah. He's an enforcer. Great word.
He's a goon.
He is. I think enforcer is a better word. But yes, I wanted him. But look what they offered him. They gave him 3 years. 3 years, $33 million. So it's $11 million a year. I mean, that's not horrible numbers. A lot of people are saying mid-level exception for him, which is around like $8 million, I think. But 3 years at the age of 37. I don't know. I just feel like there's a lot. I think there's probably some stuff within this contract that we're not seeing. Maybe some incentives and stuff like that. So it's actually maybe front loaded. I'm not 100% sure. I haven't looked into the contract. I just thought 3 years for a 37-year-old player, and that's not named LeBron, is a lot of years. So.
It does seem like a lot. But I also think Philly is not a very good managed team. So that could be it as well.
100%. And you got to think they're in their window right now. They have to win now. Embiid only has a couple more years. That's not true. Embiid could play a lot longer than that, but he has injury history. Yes. So look further down the list. Some other big signs I noticed. Nicholas Batum, he actually ended his deal with LAC, the Clippers, but he re-signed. It was just they're just changing the contract. So that brings back some defensive presence for them. Malik Monk moves from LA to Sacramento on a 2-year, $9.5 million, which I wouldn't normally be highlighting Malik Monk, but Kevin Huerter got traded to the Sacramento Kings. So what does this mean for who's starting in the guard? We'll get into that. Yep. Delon Wright, which a lot of people, I think he was a polarizing topic here in Atlanta. A lot of NBA heads and hoopers like ourselves like Delon Wright. We thought he was a great asset. It sucked watching him go, but when you look at, he got $8 million a year from the Washington, we couldn't match that. We just couldn't, based on what we're trying to do here.
Right.
John Wall got bought out by Houston, signs a 2-year mid-level exception with the Clippers. So now the Clippers come back healthy. You're looking at John Wall, Batum, Paul George, Kawhi Leonard. I mean, it's a loaded team. This could be the West, right? If you look up the West right now, the rosters in the West, there's about 11 teams that have rosters that should make playoffs, and only 8 of them can make it. So it's going to be a very entertaining year in the NBA. Hopefully injuries don't screw it up. And the last thing I'd like to highlight is Aaron Holiday. This was the Hawks' lonely free agency signing we did. Yes. Don't get me wrong, we did some trades, but this is our free agent signing. We got him for the Bettman 1 year, $1.9 million for a 25-year-old point guard who's going to be our fourth guard. Like, he won't play every game. This is a great deal. Plays gritty defense, can shoot the ball if he needs to.
And he's with his brother now.
And he's with his brother, yes, Justin, that we got in a trade. So I think overall, really solid signing for him on the minimum. I want to look before free agency started, though. I got ahead of myself a little bit. There were a couple trades, one involving us. But the Mavericks, they traded for Christian Wood. They sent Sterling Brown. They sent a bunch of no names except for Boban. And Trey Burke. They traded for Christian Wood from the Rockets. This was an upgrade for them, but like I said, they lost Bronson. So how are they going to replace him? A lot of people think they may be in the running right now for Kyrie Irving in a trade, but I don't know what they have to offer. Like, they don't have anything to offer if you want to look at their assets, besides picks, I guess. But they just don't have much talent on that team to offer a good trade. And the Hawks, we landed DeJounte Murray.
Oh, did the Hawks do a trade? I didn't even hear.
Yeah, and he is a handsome man. He is that. He's well-spoken too. And you know what he was doing on his 4th of July? He was playing basketball in Texas wearing a Hawk shirt. Out there hooping. I love it. Yeah, I love it. And he pulled up 3 in front of someone. People are saying he can't shoot. So we'll see what happens during the season. So we acquired GJM and center Jock Landell, which we later waived from the San Antonio in exchange for Danilo Gallinari. F's in the chat for our boy Gallo.
Yeah.
A conditional 2023 first-round pick from Charlotte, which we got from trading Cam Reddish to New York Knicks. Our 2025 and 2027 first-round pick. And just a reminder for those who aren't aware in the NBA, because I think it's because of Brooklyn screwing up so bad in the past, you can't trade back-to-back years first round picks. You have to alternate every year,
right?
If you're trading a first round pick, it's not like the NFL where like you can make up for it in later rounds. You really can in the NBA, and it's the cheapest way to get good talent. And then we have a 2026 first round swap. So just does the first round pick swap mean the worst pick goes to the team we traded? I think, right? Yes,
I believe that's how pick swap works. Yeah.
And so honestly, if you're looking at this trade, you're getting rid of expiring contract on Gallo and 2 first-round picks, essentially, is what you're trading, unprotected. So, I mean, that's a lot to give up for a player. But when you look at the Hawks window and you look at what our needs were, what we're missing the most was a secondary playmaker who could play defense and score. And DeJounte Murray does all of that on a very team-friendly option. Of course, we'll only have him for 2 years, so we'll have to re-sign him And the worst part about this, we can't re-sign him until after he goes into free agency. However, we'll have his bird right, so we can offer the most money. So if we want to keep him, we should be able to keep him theoretically. We'll see where we're at 2 years from now.
Let me ask you, why is it that we can't re-sign him?
We could re-sign him. I'm sure Schlenk already offered him the contract, but I think it's only like we can offer him right now is like 3-year, 60 something million. Like it's right at 20 million a year. It's not.
Gotcha.
He's worth so much more than that. He knows that. We know that. A couple of things about him. What was been said so far by Schlenk in the front office is that either him or Trey should be on the court at all times. So, which is contrary to how Nate McMillan has been the past 2 years, where he's done this rotating
like a
first unit, second unit. Exactly.
Yeah.
Your first unit and your second unit. And to be honest, it drives Hawks fans everywhere mad. Just absolutely crazy, especially when you're playing against teams and your second unit's out there getting dogged by Devin Booker, who's still out in the court, or you're playing a team that, or like the Boston Celtics, who either have Jaylen Brown or Tatum on the court at all times. Like,
no offense to Nate, because he's forgotten more about basketball than I'll ever know, but that's high school shit right there. I don't see platoon subbing unless I go down to the local high school and watch it there.
Yeah,
or I'm watching a Hawks game.
Shout out Coach Allen.
Yes.
Yeah. and the frustrating part about it too is when you see it is that, don't get me wrong, I agree some games. And in the regular season, sure, if you want to do it sometimes and it's not a big game, whatever, do it. Like, let's rest some players. But in the playoffs or in like high profile games, you got to leave some of your best players on the court. You just have to do it, especially when you're playing against top talent. So
absolutely,
just frustrating on that sense. And then we get past free agency and you start to see the trades start to happen. So this was the next. So the reason DJM has already been introduced and stuff is because that was the last season's calendar year. Now we're on a 2022-2023 calendar year.
Yep.
Right. And one of the first moves that are made during this new year is Atlanta Hawks trade Kevin Huerter to the Sacramento Kings for Justin Holiday, Mo Harkless, and a top 14 protected 2024 first round pick. This protected pick will become a top 12 protected in 2025 or a top 10 protected in 2026 if it doesn't pan out. And if it doesn't pan out, even in 2026, it becomes 2 second round picks. Just a little bit of
Kayvon there.
Yeah,
we don't beat the 76ers without him.
Game 7, Kayvon's a legend.
Yes, absolutely.
I mean, we'll get into this later in the segment, but we can't say enough good things about Red Velvet. He's one of my favorite Hawks players.
Absolutely.
I think we can officially say White Guy Summer. What is it? White Boy
Summer is
over. White Boy Summer is over. Now that
God.
Kayvon and Gallo's gone, we had the 3 and bogey. It's over. It's officially done, and that's okay. I mean, we are thankful for the memories, and we look forward to the future. And I'm sure there's some Hawks fans out there who I will not claim, but every Hawks fan I know is wishing him the best. They want Kayvon to go on and succeed. I really hope he goes on to start out there, and I hope they play meaningful basketball for 2 reasons. One, I want to see him at least on a team that can compete, but I also want this pick to convey, because if the pick doesn't convey, besides salary dumping, we don't get much back from this. So let's look into it. Justin Holiday is going to be a great 3rd, 4th guard, like his brother, Aaron. He's going to be good on defense. He's not the best facilitator, but he's, like I said, gritty defender, and he can get some buckets. I think he's around a 37% 3-point shooter. I think his younger brother Aaron's a little bit better than he is, but both of them came in here for defense. Like something our second unit, our team lacked in a whole is defense. And we've proved this year that you can have literally one of the top offenses in the league and you won't do well in the playoffs if you can't play defense.
No.
Mo Harkless comes in. I don't know if he's going to make the team yet because he's not on a vet minimum deal. We probably end up waiving him. And we'll get a little bit into that, why we'll do that. And then that first round pick, I don't know if it conveys this year. Not this year, the 2024, because top 14 protected, that means they don't even make the play-in, which is lottery protected, which I don't know. You're hoping the Kings don't Kings and they actually do well. And it's just hard to see that path with how, what do I say, challenging the West is right now.
Yes, I can see that.
And one of the reasons why is a team like the Minnesota Timberwolves just went out and got Gobert. They trade 3 unprotected firsts for Gobert, as well as Jared Vanderbilt, Patrick Beverly and Malik Beasley. Like they trade some good depth.
Sure.
And 3 unprotected picks for Gobert, which the reason I highlight this is, one, Timberwolves are in win now. You have to be in a small market. You have to be in that win now scenario.
Absolutely.
And I think the two-headed giant with him and Cat, I think it's going to be I think it's been great for them, but I don't think it's going to be a championship. I don't think they're going to win a championship with this. Do I think they can make a run? Sure. And anything can happen in the playoffs. Don't get me wrong. Anything can happen in the playoffs, but I don't believe they win a championship on this move. But it's interesting. And the interesting part, especially, is because what this trade did for the KD market has kind of screwed up everything for the rest of the offseason continuing. And I'll get to that at the very end. So I read their Twitter after all these moves. Something I found interesting, especially after the Hawks made their moves, was as currently constructed, I'm pretty worried about the Hawks bench offense. Staggering Trey and DeJounte would help a lot, but Nate McMillan loves to run full bench units, and Atlanta has done nothing to offset losing Hunter or Herter or Gallinari. Trey Young's father, Ray Young, replies, "Huh? Have you seen who they brought in to come off the bench? Way better bench than last year!" Exclamation point.
Old Rayford.
Oh, Ray, dude. And I will
your
say,
nemesis.
We're not nemesis. We had a misunderstanding on Twitter. I was a misunderstanding. We're not nemesis. But he brought up a good point. He said the bench is better this year, and it made me think. Well, is the bench better? Like, what are we even comparing? What is the difference?
Yeah, let's take a look. See.
And so here's what we're looking at: 2021, 2022 Hawks. Your starting point guard Trey Young.
Mm-hmm.
You're starting small guard. I'm going to do post the bogey injury is Kevin Herter, small forward DeAndre Hunter, power forward John Collins, center Clint Capella. Your sixth man bogey, your seventh man Gallo, eighth man Okongwu, ninth man Lou Williams, 10th man Delon Wright.
Right.
And then you have TLC thrown in the mix, a couple other players, but they didn't get any meaningful minutes. And so then we will look at 2022, 2023 team, our starting unit, Trey Young. Same. DeJounte Murray, huge upgrade over Kevin Herter. No offense to Kevin. Small forward, DeAndre Hunter, same. Power forward, as of right now, John Collins, same. And center, Clint Capella. Your sixth man and your sixth man's Bogey. Your seventh man's Okongwu. Then you get into 8, 9, 10s, Jalen Johnson, and then you're having some mix of Aaron Holiday, Reef, Justin Holiday, and AJ Griffin.
AJ Griffin, yeah.
So what we're looking at here is your bench. Jalen Johnson over Gallo. Gallo right now is a better player, but Jalen Johnson might be a better player by the end of this year. We don't know. He has the playmaking ability that Gallo does. He's probably a better defender than Gallo is. Sure. Now, he's not going to have that veteran savviness or the clutch skills that Gallo does, but I could see how this second unit, especially when you think the fact that either Trey or DeJounte is going to be on the court at all times, one of them two. So just by having DeJounte in the second unit should already be better theoretically than last year's second unit. Even with, because here's the thing, you had to pick between Bogey and Kayvon according to our contracts, to make sure we get below these luxury tax, but also just to make sure that we're not having too many people in competing positions. And if you think about it, Bogey his contract expires next year. So this frees up cap at the end of next year.
Right.
He's also better offensively than Kayvon is. Kayvon, if he could be consistent every night and do the same thing every night, I would rather keep him on his contract.
100%.
But the fact that, don't get me wrong, his defense is better than Bogey, but the fact that his offense is so hit or miss, I see why they pulled the trigger on moving Kayvon.
Yep.
So if you're looking at this, I think right now, obviously we have a better roster going in 22-23, which is DeJounte Murray at the
Absolutely we do.
Small guard and the starting point guard on the bench. And so right now, Nate McMillan's on the hot seat. I think Nate McMillan's got to put up wins. If you start this year off say we start off 2-8, I think he might get fired right off the rip. Or if we are under 500 once you get the All-Star break, he may get fired at that point. And I think I would be okay with that because this is our window. You can't waste it now. And just one last thing as we're departing off of the Hawks, I just want to say, like I said, best of luck, Kev. I saw some nasty tweets by people. Herter had every chance to solidify his role with the Hawks as an important piece and simply never delivered. Come on.
That's that doofus that works at 680 The Fan.
Yeah, and you know what's crazy is I like Steak Shapiro. Yeah, I like some of the stuff he says, and because he's kind of a homer in some ways, but I just thought that was just a nasty tweet. Kayvon's, you don't go play the Bucks in the NBA Eastern Conference Finals without him. He's also been just nothing but a pro's pro. Never has done everything. Always been out there working hard. I don't know. That bothered me. And one last thing I'll say before we go on is last week we're talking about the Nets and the Nets netting, and if the Nets would be Blursed, and they look to be Blursed as KD comes out this week asking for a trade. Will it happen? I don't know. The Gobert market made this so hard because now you're looking at 3 unprotected pick swaps and young players as the going market. And the problem is with KD is you can't replicate his value in a trade, where here's what happens. If you do, the team he goes to is no longer a contender. So will he want to go to that team? I don't know. And the other problem
that's
is
also the sorry, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I was just gonna say, did y'all see that they said that they weren't going to trade him to the Suns? The Suns is one of the teams he said he wants to go to. The Nets came out and said they're not trading him to the Suns unless they get D-Book in return.
And exactly. And
that's insane. I get it, but that's insane.
You saw them do the same thing when Harden was going to get traded, and they weren't going to, they were looking for the right package, and then they ended up with Ben Simmons, which is another story. But that's the thing is they're in the worst place ever, where it's like, I feel bad for Nets fans because the longer they don't make a move, the less bargaining power they have. But at the same time, maybe you're hoping you can bring them all back and they play. So right now I'm saying 50-50 on whether KD goes or not. And if he does go, I think he's going to somewhere like Toronto, where they actually can give up the right amount of players and he can still be competitive. So right now, my places I think he'll go, Toronto or Golden State. I hate saying Golden State, but those are the top 2 right now. I don't know if the Hawks get him, and I don't know if the Hawks want him now. I think after all the moves we made, we stick where we're at.
The Raptors. After the Kawhi Leonard season, they get KD and they do it again.
I'm telling you right
now,
that
would be hilarious.
Well, here's the thing, too.
See that.
It's a 4-year deal, so they'll get him for 4 years.
Well,
if the Raptors
that's true.
Get him and they win 1 or 2 championships, I'll be so angry because it ruins the Hawks windows. No, it's not hilarious. It's our window and it's wide open and we're trying to fly.
True, we are trying to fly. We gotta.
You know who doesn't fly? The Mets.
Yes.
Oh, we going there?
We're going straight there.
Oh wow, that is entirely true. Because
Mets don't fly. That's a great point.
They are our Blursed of the week, the New York Mets, and that was a Yankee accent. My attempt at that. New York.
The New York Mets.
Hey, I'm walking here.
Yeah, there you go. Exactly.
Let's just dip right into it here. The reason I chose the Mets is because they have been outrageous on Twitter. And I don't like to generalize fans because, every fan base has a ton of idiots and, yours truly included.
Oh, yeah.
But with the lack of success that they have had over the last 40 years, it is insane the amount of confidence that they have in their team to finish out a year. And that goes hand in hand with the national media and how well they rank the Mets year after year.
Every year.
We'll take a dive back into history. The Mets have won 2 World Series since they were founded in 1962. They won in 1969, and then most recently they won in 1986. That's 36 years ago.
Yeah. Is that one like the Lenny Dykstra team?
Yes, Lenny Dykstra, Gary Carter, Darryl Strawberry.
Was Darryl Strawberry? Yeah, there it is. Yeah. Okay.
So, and I'm not one to be like, oh, they won because of this. That was the World Series that Bill Buckner booted that ground ball in Game 6.
I did not know that was the same one.
Yep. So they won in Game 7 after he blew the game, basically, on that ground ball. So, you know what? We'll give them that one, but their franchise's luck stopped there.
Yes.
In the years since, they've had a few opportunities, but it's mostly just been really, really ugly and fun to watch from our perspective. So
because the Mets will Met. Every Braves fan knows that.
They've done nothing to show us different.
Mm-hmm.
So right after that World Series, they lost in the NLCS in 1988. They wouldn't go back to the playoffs until 1999. In that time span, they had 6 consecutive losing seasons from 1991 to 96. They didn't win another division title until 2006.
Wow.
Now, they did go to the World Series in 2000 against the Yankees. They lost in 5 games. That was Mike Piazza, and also, side note, Pat Mahomes Sr. was on that team as a reliever. He had a 5.3 ERA, so not the best.
I went right home about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, luckily his son made some money, so they're fine.
Yeah, that'll be good.
Yeah, he's got a Super Bowl.
So we'll skip forward a little bit further. 2007 Mets had a 7-game lead in the NL East with 17 games to play. They lost 11 out of 15 and missed the playoffs completely.
Well, so that's the same year that Jimmy Rollins and the Phillies
win the World Series.
We're tying back in, yeah. And so we'll fast forward, to 2015, about 8 more years. After a 9-year postseason drought, they lost to the Royals in 5 games. Again, in 5 games. That's the gentleman's sweep, so that's brutal.
Yes, sir.
Wait, I forgot they went to the World Series in 2015.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy.
David Wright, Daniel Murphy.
Old Cespedes.
Wait, was Murphy
injury?
Was Daniel Murphy from the Mets, or did he start in Washington? I forget.
So he was with the Mets first, and then he was also with Washington for a time. But I think that the Mets World Series was when he kind of went off, and that's when he was he's most well known.
Exactly, he got big, super popular. And went to the Rockies, right?
Was on that team. Yeah, I think he did play for the Rockies for a bit as well. Travis d'Arnaud, yours truly, the Braves catcher, was there early on in his career, and that's also when they had Noah Syndergaard, Jacob deGrom, and Bartolo Colon. I can't not mention that big guy.
Oh, I love him so much.
So it's a pretty fun team, but nonetheless, they had a lot of good players. They only won 1 game in the World Series. That's pretty disappointing. Then after that, they made the wild card play-in game in 2016, and they haven't made the playoffs since. So,
but they're going to win the division this year, according to everybody.
Yeah.
Yes. So, since the Mets have won the World Series in 1987, the rest of the NL East has done the following. I'll start with the Braves because it's the best. And fun to compare the two.
It is.
The Braves have won 22 division titles, 14 of which were in a row between 1991 and 2005.
Crazy.
And now we've won the past 4 as well. Hopefully 5 this year. We've had 6 World Series appearances and 2 wins in 95 and 2022.
It's not fun to say that part.
2021.
But still impressive.
2 and 4.
I mean,
yes.
You get them when you get them.
You're right. You're right.
So now the Marlins. So you never really think of the Marlins as a successful team, and in fact, they have never won a division title in their entire time in the league since 1993. But they have won 2 World Series.
That's the crazy
as wild card teams.
That's wild.
Wait, can you also let's just say something about the Marlins? They're in a historically hard division, though. If you think about
for sure.
I mean, the Braves historically are one of the best teams in the last 40 years.
Yeah, hard division because of the Braves for the most
30 years.
Part. But
yeah,
they're pretty decent division year after year and hard to compete with. And, they don't have the best market down there to cheer them on.
They have aquariums inside their stadium, though. It's pretty cool. Pretty cool.
See, that shows so much of why.
Maybe that's why no one's in the stands.
Yeah,
they sell out and everybody's just at the aquarium.
Yeah, it's tickets to the aquarium. And so basically, I think the way we should say it is their aquarium has a professional baseball stadium.
Oh,
Let's look at it that way.
Wait, were they so bad that instead of being the Florida Marlins, they just were like, all right, Miami, we can't, the whole state can't take this.
Yeah,
we got Tampa over here.
Yeah,
they rebranded. Tampa rebranded too.
Yeah, you got to take Devil out of there.
I like it.
Yes.
So, the Marlins won in 1997 and 2003 over the Indians and then the Yankees, which we love to see the Yankees lose in the World Series.
Of course.
All right, the Expos / Nationals. They have won 5 division titles in that time span since 1987, and they won the World Series in 2017 over the Astros. And then the Phillies, 6 division titles, 3 World Series appearances, and 1 World Series win in 2008 over the Rays. So that is a ton of success across all the different teams in the division except for the Mets.
Wait, so we were wrong then. The Phillies won the year after Jimmy Rollins won.
You're right. Yeah, we've been saying 2007.
That's all right, though.
They did go to the World Series in 2007, too.
I think they did, yeah. They just didn't win.
That would make sense. Okay.
If somebody wants to check that as well.
I got you right now.
Blake's looking at
it. Was
nailed twice here.
Oh, no, wait. It was actually the Boston Red Sox over the Colorado Rockies.
And when?
The 2007 World Series.
Okay, so but they did win it in 8 over
And
the
8.
Rays.
Yes.
All right, sweet.
What?
The Red Sox
I
swept
swear they
them.
went 2 years in a row.
It might have been 08, 09.
It was. Yep. They lost to the Yankees in 2009.
There it is.
Fair enough, folks.
We'll put a disclaimer in the podcast notes how we were wrong for most of the episode.
Yes.
I'm not putting that down already.
We correct ourselves before we ever finish. So
2008, the Phils won. So, with all the success that has taken place from every other team in the East, all of which have at least one World Series title in that time span, you think as a fan base you'd be cautious, as we were as Braves fans and Georgia sports fans in general, even as it was looking like, oh, we're gonna make it to the World Series. If it happens, it happens. Try to play it coy, like it doesn't matter when it really, really matters.
I think when you lose a Super Bowl 28-3, you have to be humbled. And every game you just take for an inning at a time in baseball, an inning at a time.
It's like you find any sort of opening to bring up the 28-3. I don't get it.
I'm traumatized, and I think talking about it makes me feel better a little bit.
Just do the healthy thing and bury it deep down inside. All right.
So anyway, national media declared the Mets the winners of the NL East at the beginning of June, as they had a 10.5 game lead, which is, I don't think there's ever been a lead of a division at that point that had been blown. I will say that. So that's probably they were trying to make an easy call when they should have realized who they were talking about. They've done nothing. As the Braves got hot, they did nothing but complain about our schedule.
Oh my God.
We're in the same division and we played these same exact teams that the Mets do. So it's just like the different ways the schedule lined up. The Mets had an easier schedule at the beginning of the year, and then they got into their harder schedule right at June, and then the opposite for the Braves. And so it's going to happen, but you still have to win games.
What kills me about that argument too is no matter who you're playing, it's hard to win 14 games in a row. Like it just is. In anything you do to win that many games consecutively, it doesn't matter who you're playing.
No. Yeah. I mean, baseball is a crazy sport for sure, but that is very rare air for that to happen. Mm-hmm. And so now with literally half the season left, the Braves have closed the gap in 1 month to 3.5 games from 10.5 games. The Mets continue to Met, and by God, it is almost as fun to see their collapse and frustration as it is to be a Braves fan and see them win.
Yes, they go great together.
I just take such pride in their failures. So hopefully this doesn't blow up in our faces.
Wait. We got to knock on some wood here.
Yeah. I don't think it will because, again, we're not Mets fans.
But still World Series champions. So
correct.
It's okay.
Can't never take that away.
Yeah, the only thing that would take that away from us is if we collapse and the Mets go on to win the World Series this year. It won't happen because of the Mets.
Because of the Mets. But
Cut that. All right. So I think real quick we can transition now, and we'll do a quick segment that we've been working on. It's called AB Conversation, and I got to tell you, of my co-hosts here, they don't agree on a lot when it comes to Atlanta sports, and I think we should give you guys a little taste of that. I have a prompt for you guys, and I want a response from each of you quickly, or as quickly as we can.
Yeah.
In the news this week from the NFL, Kyle Pitts was ranked the number 5 tight end in the league. Looking back, was that a good selection for the Falcons in the first round?
So I'm going to go ahead. Blake, do you want to start this one?
No, I just wanted to preface real quick. Throughout the podcast so far last week and this week, I feel like everyone has seen what we agree on pretty well, but they're about to find out that there's a lot that we don't agree on.
So much more we don't agree on.
Yeah, no, you can talk about KP first, the old unicorn, Kyle Pitts.
Yes. So I want to preface this also by saying that I think he's a good player. I think he's a talented player. He's a great player. Yeah, sure. But what I don't think he was a good pick at number 4 in the draft. I just don't, given what the Falcons needed, given what the Falcons were as a roster. That was the last thing we needed. We already had a tight end. We had just gotten the year before Hayden Hurst. And I'm not saying that Hayden Hurst is as good as Kyle Pitts, but he's good. And as far as when it comes to him being the fifth ranked tight end in the league this year, I think you can look at two things as to why that's the case. One, I think it is a thin position group, but also two, it's easy to rack up stats when you're down quite a bit and you need to throw the ball, or you don't have a run game and you need to throw the ball, which is exactly what the Falcons found themselves in this season.
Okay, a couple of things. One, when you're in a draft and you see a unicorn and everything else is just a horse, you got to take the unicorn if you get the shot, Aaron. And the unicorn was sitting there at 4, begging. If you're the Falcons and your game plan was to take best player available, Kyle Pitts is the best player available, and they picked the best player that they found available. And I know the argument is you shouldn't build your team around skill positions. You should start in the trenches. And I think that's where you would have rather gone.
Not only that, but tight end of all places. That's not the position that wins you Super Bowls.
Or is it? I mean, Travis Kelce and the Kansas City Chiefs have looked like they've cracked a code when it comes to breaking down, I don't know, other defenses.
Yeah.
When you have,
and Travis Kelce is certainly good, but the thing is, he's also been on a team with Tyreek Hill, and Pat Mahomes has been his quarterback, and they've had people like Kareem Hunt and folks like that in the backfield.
I'm Andy Reid leading that offense.
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah, Arthur Smith is not.
He's not Andy Reid. Okay?
All right. Arthur Smith, I don't have it in front of me, but when he was in Tennessee, his last year's offense coordinator, they were top 10 offense, I'm pretty sure, in the league. And that's what Tannehill is.
Was with Ryan Tannehill, but it's also not the best look to say that after he left, Tennessee did much better.
No, they didn't.
They did last year.
No, they didn't.
Tennessee did do much better. Go ahead.
It's got to be said that they do have Derrick Henry, which that opens up any type of
it does.
Offense.
Yeah, it's easy to want to run the ball when you have Derrick.
So let me just say a couple things real quick. Gronkowski he's the receiver you remember from the Patriots dynasty. You don't remember any other receiver. I mean, Randy Moss, sure, but they listen. Hold up, they lose that Super Bowl.
Julian Edelman.
I know there's Edelman. I know there's Wes Welker, but the best player of the bunch is Gronkowski. Is he not?
No, I don't.
Gronkowski is probably considered the best tight end to ever play in the NFL.
I mean, just look at the since you want to bring up the 28-3 Super Bowl all the time, look at that one and tell me who meant more to their win. Was it Julian Edelman?
I'd probably say James White, their running back. Okay. Or honestly, I'd probably give it to Devontae Freeman, who was undercover playing for them when he missed that block.
Fair. So none of those people were named Rob.
No, I agree. I'll agree with that one. I will agree with that one. But my point is if you look around the league and you look at, I do think that a lot of these teams that go to the Super Bowl have good tight ends. I think last year with 49ers almost making it there, you have what's the 49ers tight end? Yeah, Kittle. You have Kittle. Gronk's been in some of these tight end or in some of these Super Bowls. You've seen Donkey Kong from Kansas City in the Super Bowl. Mark Andrews, Travis Kelce, the old Donkey Kong punch, which is one of the best celebrations of all time.
It is.
And a lot of these teams don't have the star wide receiver as often. But I get what you're saying. Like, why draft a tight end? Let me just say something about Kyle Pitts. And you're like, okay, well, he had all these great numbers last year because we couldn't run the ball. Or
how many touchdowns did he have?
That was a great one.
He had one. However, he had the second most receiving yards in tight end history for a rookie.
Also, wait. Just one thing, Blake. I would also like to point out he never scored a touchdown on U.S. soil.
Yes, it was in London against the Jets.
He hasn't done it in the contiguous 48 states.
He actually did in the Pro Bowl. I think
everybody thinks that counts.
Yes. I think Kirk Cousins threw it to him. Here's what I will say. Guess what tight end was covered by cornerbacks more than any other tight end last year? Kyle Pitts.
Okay.
46.7% of the time. Almost half the time, a cornerback is covering Kyle Pitts. So,
but would you also not say that more than half the time he didn't line up in a traditional?
Yes, I would. I mean, yes, I would agree with that. But my point is, and especially coming into this year now, when you look at us drafting London in the first round,
right,
and you're bringing these two offensive talents, what I'm trying to say is, Kyle Pitts is going to bring away the defense from so many other aspects, and you couldn't tell last year because of how bad our offense was. Calvin Ridley, who's only played, I think, 3 games, maybe 4 games in the whole season, you probably could get a better sense of what it was going to look like if he stays, but he leaves because of mental health, and I'm not knocking on that. And then later the gambling thing comes out. Whereas like if you think he actually has players around him, I think he puts up much better numbers. And I think this year you will see that. I think Kyle Pitts, I think for me to be able to defend Kyle Pitts, he's going to have to get close to 8 to 12 touchdowns this year. You're going to want to see him around that 1,000-yard mark again. And I do think he is a top 5 tight end in the league.
Okay. I hope that's true.
I think both in fantasy and in real football. I think this year, if you're going to really quick fantasy plug real quick, if you're going to draft the Falcons, draft Kyle Pitts in fantasy. I wouldn't touch any other one. Cordell Patterson might get some touchdowns, and Drake London might be worth keeping if you have keepers or if you're in a dynasty league. And he could finish with 8 touchdowns.
Aaron, what's your last words on this?
My last words would be that the 2021 Tennessee Titans were the number 1 overall seed, and that
how far did they make it again though?
They made it to the only game that they played, but they lost to the team that went to the Super Bowl. Okay. But when they were never the number 1 seed when
Art was there. No, for sure they're building something. And I think this is a bigger discussion. I do believe,
but that really wasn't a Kyle Pitts response. So I'm sorry about that. I just had to get that in. But yeah, I just want to say that I hope he gets there. I don't think he's there now. And I think that he was a bad pick at the 4th overall pick, though I hope I'm proven wrong. And I also think that Drake London was a bad pick as well.
So my closing argument on it, real quick, argument. If you look around the league this year, what position blew up contract-wise? Wide receiver.
Yes.
And it was stupid money. And I think what you see here, and the same thing you see that Schlenk did for the Hawks, is that Terry Fontenot got ahead of the curve, and he drafted Kyle Pitts last year and London this year to have cheap, good talent. So next year, because our numbers open up huge next year. We have the biggest cap in all of NFL, I think, next year. We'll have over 100-some million. We're going to have all this money to spend on things that aren't wide receiver or tight end, which tight end one, you never find a good tight end in free agency, really. Like, it's hard to find.
True.
And then secondly, wide receiver, we don't have to blow our money on that position that went way too outrageous, where we got really good, solid wide receivers, no one to write home about, but some really good talent that maybe could sprout into something. And then you get London first round, so you have them locked up for 4 to 5 years, that you don't have to worry about that big contract. Right. I think next year, there's the make or break. What happens next year? If we make playoffs next year, we're fine. But if not, then Kyle Pitts was a bust and the whole thing. I don't know. It's hard. But football is one of those things where you have to just let it play out.
So I'll give my 2 cents on who I'm siding with on this one. One, we're not the LA Rams, nor will we ever be. We're not going to be bringing in free agents like that. We're not going to be trading picks like that. We're just not going to make that happen. 2, looking back at that draft and what has happened since, now we're the 2nd year into his contract, and he doesn't even have really a starting worthy quarterback in this league.
No.
And so,
that's a good point.
That changes, but like, even if we draft a solid rookie this upcoming year, he'll be 3 years in with a rookie quarterback.
Oh, what do you mean, Hayden? We already did.
So I'm saying I'll use your John Collins argument against you that he is a good player, but he's not necessarily a good fit on this team right now.
Right. And you could be 100% right. Desmond Ridder, who we did bring in the 3rd round, he could become that next quarterback, but he might not be, and that's okay because we took him in the 3rd round. I agree. It's a gamble, but I agree with the process of he was the best player available. Let's take the best player available, and let's hope that we can use this best player to maybe reach further than we could have without him. And so we'll see what happens. I think Arthur Smith had a great first year this year, winning more games than a lot of people thought he would.
Yikes.
All right, fair enough.
Blake, that's Blake, everybody. He's a glass half full kind of guy.
I am.
Kize, kind of the opposite end.
Especially when it comes to the Falcons, you all will find out, especially as we move into the fall, that's what we disagree the most on. And it'll be a lot of fun conversations.
Aaron is the glass half empty guy, and I'm the guy that says the glass is empty completely. So that's what you're gonna get, guys. That pretty much does it for all our segments. Do you have anything to look forward to this upcoming week, or anything to leave with the audience?
Just what I would like to leave the audience with, as Atlanta sports fans, we're so used to the past pointing at other players saying, "How did they make the All-Star team? They didn't deserve it. How did they do this? They didn't deserve it." Is Acuna that player this year? Hear me out. Ronald Acuna in the outfield actually ranks like
I'm actually with you there.
Yeah, like between 15 and 25, I think, in most statistics. He hasn't played enough meaningful games, but he's starting in the outfield for the All-Star game because of the fan vote. And I'm proud and I'm happy he's on the All-Star team. I'm not going to complain about it, but I want to own this as a Braves fan and realize he probably shouldn't be in the All-Star game, but he's going to be starting. I just think that's what I want to leave with. The Braves, have we made it? Does that mean the Braves have made it when we're having a player make the All-Star team?
I think
probably
so.
shouldn't.
That's like Yankee shit right there.
Adam Duvall is in the final parts of the vote as well. So he's having a worse season. So, I mean, really, it's the Braves fans thing.
And it could be, maybe is the problem is the fan vote a problem in All-Star games? I think so. I think we see it in basketball. I hate the fan participation in it. But honestly, the writers don't do a great job of the NBA all team either. So who do you trust? I think the players should vote for all these things, players and coaches. I really do.
Fair enough.
Mine's not much. I'm just going to say watch Atlanta United on Saturday. We're playing another great team, Austin FC, a new team in the league who has – follow the Atlanta United footprint and are having immediate success with it. It'll be a tough match, but
go Five Stripes. All the same.
Yes, go Five Stripes. But that's it. That's all I got.
Let's see. I think I should have something, but I don't right now.
It's all right. I'll go for him. Hayden's really curious.
I got it.
God.
KD be a Hawk.
Dang it. No, that's next week. All right, beginning of next week, since we don't release until Wednesday, we're playing the Mets finally. We've played them only one series this year. We've split with them. Next Monday, we are playing at home against the Mets, which is timely for this segment that we're releasing, and hopefully we play well and get a couple dubs.
Yeah, and then this will get trending on social media. So remember, everybody, share it, like it, give us 5-star review, send it to your mom, your cousins, everyone. Ask them to listen to it. And hopefully I was going to say, hopefully by the time our next episode comes out, the Mets have met it and we're in first place in the NL East.
Let's hope so.
As we wrap up, special shout out to our friend Oh No that put our music together. Yes, he's awesome. And I forgot to get his handles again, but next week for sure. Yes. 2 more shouts outs. Shouts outs to our girl Jess.
Shouts out.
That's our logo. That is dope. And Kinsey for helping us out with this and that social medias.
Absolutely.
Appreciate to all you listeners out there, thanks for listening. We hope you enjoyed the episode. If you did, leave us a 5-star review. If you didn't, still leave a 5-star review and tell us in private if you didn't like it, and we'll try to make some adjustments.
Absolutely.
But yeah, we'll see you next week. Thanks for listening.
See you. Hey, try not to be blursed.